train people the same way you train them to be entitlement
babies. But you
babies.
need another baby. So, yeah, there's got to be some conception.
You got to take them off.
Yeah, I think somebody needs to have an affair and have some babies, and then we create those babies and develop a new country.
Oh, man.
Is that really Whataburger coffee? Or
Yes, no. Well, it was. I like Whataburger coffee. You know, it's not an endorsement. I know I'm wearing orange, and now we put Starbucks.
Just like
I'm
you
too
like
cheap
it.
to pay for the Starbucks.
Exactly. I'm an Exxon fan.
Bengal Traders, best coffee in the world.
Is that the place where you can put those extra shots in?
Yes.
Oh God. For free. I'm like, someday they're gonna charge. They can totally charge for that.
550 KTSA.
KTSA News Time, 11:10. Gang of Four rolls on for a Friday morning. It's the gateway to the weekend. We talk about the big stories of the day and the week with our gang. We do it every Friday. On our gang today, we have Mario Ochoa from Sammis-Ochoa Public Relations. We have Joe Reinagel, the sports director at Ken's 5. And drinking her Whataburger coffee over there is Sylvia Rincon from Fox San Antonio.
Coffee.
Giving her a hard time about her
Drinking
Whataburger
coffee. This is not an endorsement. However,
you notice how everybody now, everybody's coffee, it used to be just like gas station coffee.
Yeah.
You know, you go, if you went to Mobil, the coffee cup said Mobil. Now it's all, like one gas station has Cibolo Mountain.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
I know.
And then there's Bengal Traders.
Premium blend
Like what am I supposed to believe? The Valero goes into the jungles in India and makes it
right.
for,
well,
you know, I mean,
Chevron, you know, when they're like, dumping their stuff, they were getting
whatever.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, so it's just coffee. All right. On our gang today, talking about we've been talking a lot of politics, but let me come back to Hurricane Irene. You know, we had the president making that announcement. You must heed your local officials, get ready, you must be prepared. A lot of evacuation orders being given. What do you think about people who don't evacuate hurricanes? Why are there people? Yeah, I mean, you have to cover that, right?
Yeah. Well,
what is it about
people?
people?
I was in Galveston. Was that for Hurricane Ike?
And what's the reason, Sylvia? What's people's thinking?
I'm going, well, I'm going to tell you what happened. I run into people who refuse to leave, and I look at them, and here's what they look like. They're generally elderly, maybe possibly disabled. It
would be hard for them to leave.
What's the nice way to say this? Maybe a little mentally challenged
Distrustful.
and mistrustful, a little paranoid. I don't know. They are characters, a lot of these people, and they find the cameras. And they actually will say, I'm not going to leave because I think they fall into two categories. They're those who are a little, let's just call it what it is. They're a little nuts. They're a little crazy, okay? And it doesn't matter what you say to them. They're not going to do it, and they're going to.
Sylvia always comes in here. She's very neutral.
I try, but I can't.
After an hour, I can wear her down and find out what's really back there.
So there's those people, and then there's those who are just, I guess, so emotionally attached to their homes and really, truly don't feel like they can go anywhere.
Don't you think
and it's a little bit of pride.
There are people that have heard this so many times.
Oh yeah, there's nothing you can do about
that. They just think, and maybe they have evacuated before, and they just think, they're usually wrong.
There's some of those, yeah.
There's some of those.
There's some of those people too.
Yeah.
There's some funny quotes that from people in the tourism industry along the coast that were saying, whoa, back up the truck. We don't need to evacuate everyone yet. Last year there was this threat, and then come Labor Day, the sky was clear. So there's a lot of people out there like that are making crazy claims. You just got to get people out, which is, I was listening to Obama, and there's some key words in there. He threw out FEMA, and he was urging people to get out. He's entering election year. You can't have, if this thing hits in a tragic way, you can't have something like this.
All I heard was not Katrina, not
yeah.
But that's true. I mean, every politician from now till eternity will not want to be the president that had a Katrina. So they're all going to be. But that in turn plays into people's idea that it's crying wolf, because if they think that officials are covering their behinds, then they're going to assume most evacuation orders are CYA, not the real thing, and I don't have to do it.
Well, but that's what you're hearing right now. It's like, we'll prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And I think it's the most ludicrous statement I've ever heard. Well, we'll prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. Okay. I grew up along the coast, and we didn't evacuate. I mean, that's what we did when there was a hurricane. And maybe, it wasn't the wisest thing to do, but we just didn't do it. And you stayed. It was you ride out the storm and you go from there. I think it depends on what part of the coast. I mean, if you're right there on the water, you should probably evacuate. If you're not, you know, and then I think it's up to you.
What part of the coast were you in? Where did you
Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi.
You might have interviewed his family.
I mean,
Yeah, we were the crazy ones.
Maybe that's what we were
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, we were.
The Reinagel clan.
That's right.
You know what? If I live on the coast,
Loco.
you want to stay behind, I'm for it. It means less cars on the road.
a lot of it also has to do with the state of your home. I mean, I think people who have more fortified homes, you know, are a little more brave. You know, they've invested; they're not going to leave. And then you have people who, you know that they have a home that could crumble easily, or is in a flood zone. I mean, that all plays, I think,
It's
a
kind of that
factor.
whole captain going down with the ship thing. You're going
Yeah.
to stay there regardless of what happens, right?
Joe, do you think, though, that when people stay, is it then the obligation of the emergency responders to stage these spectacular and expensive rescues, pulling people off the roof with helicopters? Or should the attitude be, we warned you, we told you, if you chose to stay, you're like one of those rugged homesteaders on the frontier. You know, no one's coming to the rescue.
But then what are those rescuers going to do, Jack? I
They
mean,
need a
seriously,
job,
that's what
too.
that's what they're going to
You
do
know.
anyway.
Got to.
Got to create jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So,
But honestly,
That's the
just-
Texas miracle.
people ask me this all the time. You're not going to leave, we're going to leave you there. But I mean, when you talk to the rescue workers, when you talk to, you know,
They want to do
You
it.
can't.
it's the
Right.
right thing to do.
I
You
understand.
want to help people.
I had to ask.
I know.
You understand. All right, it's looking like a very close presidential race. If the numbers are to be believed, this week Gallup came out with a set of numbers that showed several Republicans within the margin of error of President Obama, which is pretty extraordinary because usually at this point you would expect an incumbent president to be well ahead of these people, since none of them are, you know, sort of fully formed as a candidate yet. They don't have high name recognition. It seems to indicate that whoever runs against President Obama is going to have a pretty good chance, a better than usual chance of knocking off an incumbent. Historically, 2 out of 3 incumbent presidents are easily reelected to a second term. It's also the case that usually when presidents are reelected, they're reelected by wider margins than in the first election. That almost certainly will not be the case for Barack Obama. Does that mean then that if he is this vulnerable, all of these people who have said, well, I would support Ron Paul, but he can't win, according to these numbers, he can win. Now what do they say?
Yeah, he's third right now, but he's tied with Bachman, I think.
If you put Ron Paul up against Barack Obama, it's 47-45.
According to
Now what do you say?
Who?
The Gallup survey.
I think the problem there with Ron Paul, and I think what people worry about is, and the big term now is independents. What are independents going to do? Because that's what got Barack Obama elected in the first place. And I think that he may be a little, I'm not sure where he stems. Sometimes he's to the right, sometimes he's just all over the place. So, you know, I don't know. And I think that is what Republicans anyway are afraid of with Ron Paul. Where's he going to go now, and what's he going to come up with? So I'm not sure.
It's just curious to me because Republicans describe a wish list of things they would like to have in a candidate, and he happens to be the one that is the greatest number of those things. I'm not endorsing him. He's not my candidate. I'm just saying it's puzzling to me. All they had to fall back on was, well, yeah, he's great, but he couldn't win. He's not electable. Whoops. Now it turns out he is, Sylvia.
Well, I don't know. We haven't seen the complete campaign because you know what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Politics aside. There are no politics in a presidential
Politics
campaign.
aside? How do you put politics
you don't.
aside?
It's because it comes back to marketing and campaign. Let's just remember where McCain was around this time. Okay,
He was like
everybody?
10th.
Remember?
Yeah, he was way back.
Wait, and then what happened?
Right.
All of a sudden he surges forward. Why? Because he got this infusion, this like, you know, quote unquote, I'm doing the air quotes, sexy candidate, you know? And all
Those
of a
only work
sudden,
on the video
I know,
podcast. They
that's
don't
why
work
I
on the
said it out
radio.
loud. But that whole campaign, that marketing strategy, how are you going to sell this candidate? Does this candidate have swagger? If they have swagger and good hair, let me tell you, they will rise to the top faster
Who
than
could she be
Brett.
talking about? Could you possibly sell Ron Paul, Mario, or is he just
I don't
not
think you
sellable?
can. At this point, with Perry's relatively late announcement for his presidential run, I think the money that the Republican Party would allocate is all going to go his way. So if Ron Paul were to develop...
But why? Is it because of the look, the strategy, the marketing, or is
I
it
think,
because,
well, in the
because
past,
he's on paper?
in the past,
Let's look
I
what's
was
on
never a
paper.
Ron Paul fan for a lot of the same reasons that Joe wasn't. He kind of played to both sides, and you know, I wasn't for that in the past election when
I don't understand what you mean by that. Played to both sides. He's probably been the most consistent major political figure on the national scene. He's been this libertarian, small government guy consistently for about 30 years that I know of.
Yeah, but you look at
left and right doesn't really mean anything in that discussion.
And maybe that wasn't the right way to put it, but you look at Ron Paul, and I just think of some of the things he comes up with, legalizing marijuana, for example. And I think he is in favor of that, if I'm not mistaken. And I just, you know, I'm not sure, you know, where you, and that's a whole nother debate, but I mean, I think some of these things, you still have to come across as somebody who, what's the term I'm looking for, Jack, here? Somebody that's grown up. And I'm just not sure that that's how I see Ron Paul when I look at some of the things that he does.
Isn't it more grown up to say, these are the things I've always believed in, take them or leave them,
right,
as opposed to being these other candidates that are freeze-dried, pre-packaged, and have to revisit all their major positions to run for president? Oh, I've changed my mind on global warming, I've changed my mind on this, I've changed my mind on that.
And that may be something he can leverage, but I am on Sylvia's side where she's talking about, is he the right package? I think with the prevalence of media, social media, we kind of like that star, and we talked about this last year with Obama. He kind of had that charisma, that star power.
That's all he had.
Smooth.
That's worked out well for us.
Yeah, and I think Rick Perry
that brings us to the
has
point.
that same sort of. He's you know, he's got the hair that everyone.
He's
talks
got
about.
Hollywood. He's got that sex appeal. But let me tell you something. You're talking about this, and you're talking about this, and you've even brought it up, where we get stuck in these patterns. These elections are rigged, right? It's Democrat or Republican, because God forbid you go to like the independent side. No, that's not electable. How in the world has an independent ever really? If you're not Ross Perot, you're not a billionaire, and what do? Maybe you put a dent in it, but you're not going to get elected. It's not going to happen, right? It's rigged. But we keep complaining about why the politics is the way it is. Well, let's look and see who votes and who votes who in. Are the voters not susceptible to these marketing campaigns, and don't they end up electing somebody who is just pretty and looks good
That's exactly
on
right.
TV
Absolutely.
and not on paper? Because you made the point that Ron Paul looks good on paper.
Jack.
You being Jack. Sorry, I forget. We're on radio. And on paper, you have these candidates who look good, who have good ideas, who've thrown out these like strategies, but they don't get elected.
All I'm saying is I find it interesting that we would be down on a guy who's been saying the same thing for so long that it actually turns out now some of it is coming true, versus people whose positions seem completely mobile and
you look at Perry,
of the moment. And
he endorsed Al Gore. He used to be Democrat at some point. I mean,
I don't care about that. You know, Al Gore would be a Republican. If you brought back the 1988 version of Al Gore, he'd be in the Republican Party. That isn't even the point. The point is that I would like to hear Republicans who've always said, "Oh, we'd like to, but we just couldn't do it with Ron Paul," explain these numbers.
You could say the same thing maybe about a Herman Cain.
But Herman Cain doesn't have these numbers. He's not tying.
I understand that, but his ideas are good ideas when you get to get the economy back on track.
So maybe people don't really want. Maybe they like talking about this stuff, but they really want the guy that looks like a president.
I would vote for Herman Cain
Jack?
today.
What are you saying?
I'm saying what you're saying.
What?
Maybe,
and I'm not saying I like it.
I'm
not saying
a person
that
to play the part.
Yeah, and look presidential.
Because America likes to see good TV.
All right. Now, what about Mitt Romney? What
He's got good hair too.
He's a good-looking guy.
He is good.
Well, I wasn't.
Well, that's
Thanks, Joe.
that's
really
the qualifications now for president, right?
It's not that kind of show, Joe.
Okay, all right.
I was. I feel like Chuck Woolery all of a sudden.
Well, I mean, that seems to be
Would
the
you take him out if we paid
right?
for the day? No. Here's what I'm saying.
He's
Here's what I'm
rich.
saying. All of a sudden, here you have a guy who has been cruising along, first in the polls, but people are not so sure, not feeling the love, not very enthusiastic. Now, all of a sudden, Rick Perry's the front runner. I can remember there for a few weeks when Michelle Bachmann was that person. It's great, this is it. And Donald Trump, we found him, the new Reagan. I just get this feeling with Rick Perry that this could be a flavor of the month thing.